Okay, here's the story behind why we'll start this, because me and Vera, we found out this mental health issue is a lot in our community, and it affects our friends and also our church, and also our life also. Maybe it's our friends. So here's my story with my friend, which is my friend's brother who has mania issue for 10 years already. So he has been diagnosed to have this issue. So lately, I think 3 months ago, so he started to have some abnormal situation happen. So that caused the family in chaos. So I decided to go to visit him because I think that is because caused by the mental health issue. So during the first meetup, after we talked for a while, then suddenly, so he just went crazy and angry and raised the tone very high, and mania. And then he said, someone who say if someone say I'm crazy, I will punch that person. Like he also like very angry. Then also and talked to me, and then he also slammed the table, bam, very angry. But thank God, I pray to God, God help me and help this my friend. Then God gave me the calmness, and I still continue to pat his shoulder and let him talk. And of course, he's still very angry. And then at the point, and he become more calm, and then I got this idea that maybe I can use his as itchy at his back. And I said, maybe you need to go to see a doctor. Let's see what doctor say about your back. And then he agreed. And then second day, I accompanied him to go to see a doctor. And doctor find out he couldn't sleep for many nights, many months, and then only slept 1 hour to 2 hours. And then he will woke up and then to do the housework and cannot rest. I'm very energetic, even those less sleeping. So long story short, then I bring him to GH psychiatric departments few times. And then there's the last time the doctor find out that he might have the serious mania issue, and then intervene. I think it's doctor intervene, the big doctor intervene, then talk to him and then confirm that he need to be hospitalized, and then ask him. And I learned from doctor. Doctor said, do you want to be cured? If you want the quickest way or slower way? Then I said, well, I want the fastest way. Then the faster way will be hospitalized, or just stay in. You're okay? Okay. Oh, I thank God. Because that help the family also, because we do not know how to deal with it. So hospitalized for 1 week, injection also for intensive care. And then after that, regular take medicine, morning and afternoon. Morning and evening. So 2 doses a day. Now, thank God, he come back to normal life, which is he started a new job in Miri. And yeah, so he can interact with his friends and daughter again, like normal person. So that's why we want to have this mental health talk to help everyone of us here, and then to help the people around us. What can we do, and so on. So we thank God for preparing Sister Vera to share with us this topic. So first part already shared about mental health stigma, about the common misunderstanding about mental health in our context, and how we can play a part to reduce this mental health stigma. So you can watch this on our MGCE YouTube channel. And so today's is part 2. It's about mental health struggles. So Sister Vera is a clinical psychologist and a clinical coordinator of professional development working at mental health NGO called SLL Health. Sister Vera is a Chinese Indian who was born and raised in Sarawakian. And she later went to KL to pursue a career in psychology. She earned a degree in psychology from Help University, graduating in 2018. And she later interned at public hospital in Sarawak and came to see the need for psychological treatment for the community. Then Vera later graduated with Master of Clinical psychology at Help University in 2020, last year. So after completing her psychotherapy clinical training, now she's working with an NGO called SOL. So she has the experience. So we now welcome Sister Vera to speak to us about this topic, mental health struggles. Sister Vera, please.
All right, thank you so much, Pastor Paul, for that introductory story. I think I'm also really encouraged to hear that, when people get the right treatment that they need, they can really go back to the normal daily functioning again. And so today is the part 2 of our talk. I'm going to share a slide. Let me just share. Okay. All right, so like Pastor Paul said, we have a 2-part to this mental health talk, and today is the second part and also the last part to this mental health series that we're having. And today we're going to focus on mental health struggle itself, and also understanding what you can do to help yourself, and also what you can do to help those that you feel maybe struggling with mental health and you want to reach out to them. So what are some appropriate ways that you can be doing that? All right, so just briefly through the agenda for our talk today. First part, going to briefly go through again what mental health is. I broadly covered it a lot more in the last talk, but today we're just going to kind of view through it again. And then after that, into the symptoms and the risks. So some of the common signs of someone who's struggling with mental health struggles. Third is what can you do for yourself and for others. And I also have a short 3 minutes to group activity for us to learn an exercise of breathing relaxation, right? And then for the last part, we'll be going through a few referral resources that are based in Miri, and also hotline calls that you can call to. That's some things that I actually kind of covered in the first talk, but today we're going to go into even more detail, such as where you can go to in Miri itself for professional help. All right, so first part is what is mental health? So like I said in the first part of the talk is that like physical health, all of us also have mental health, and mental health covers all 3 of these things. First is well-being. So it is about our thoughts, it's about our emotions, it's about our behavior, and it's about our social well-being. Think how we relate to other people. It's also about our response when something happens to us. How do we respond in terms of thinking? How do we respond in terms of feeling? How do we respond in terms of acting regarding that situation? And lastly, underlying struggles. So how do we handle stress? How do we relate to other people around us? And also how do we make daily choices? So all of this, as you can see, mental health is a big part of our daily life. So what are the contributing factors? Again, going to review that with you. What are the things that kind of contribute overall to our mental health is the critical life stages that we go through. So a child who's learning to understand the world, exploring, adolescents trying to explore who they are, what people do, what are the options for the future careers, and adulthood, understanding themselves, knowing to care for other people. Is a lot of different prioritizing from the self to other people around them, right? And that's the big part of adulthood that a lot of people find it difficult to and it is a big challenge. And all of this that you experience, all of this experience that you've have during your childhood, during your adolescence, during your adulthood, kind of shape your mental health overall. Second one is genetical. So if there's someone in your family who has mental health disorders, mental health illnesses, you have the higher chance of actually getting facing with mental health illnesses as well. So it is clinically proven to be genetical as well. And then the third one is life experience. So how is it like with your family? Is it a loving family, caring family? Is it a neglectful family? Is it an abusive family? How does the society treat you? Is it a nice, trusting society that you've been met with? Or is it a society that you realize, kind of stab you in the back and it is hard to trust people? So all of this thing, all of these small events and small things just gather up together and make sums up our mental health all together. So how does a healthy mental health look like? Well, today we're going to look at a big chunk of how unhealthy mental health look like, but also before we go into that, also want to remind us again, right? How does healthy mental health look like? So it is knowing your strength and knowing your points of improvement. That's also what we call in therapy, weaknesses is known as point of improvement that we can work on. So it's knowing your strength and knowing that there are things that you can improve and it's okay. Second point is having to effectively cope with life stresses. We deal with a lot of stress in life, a lot of changes, new changes, things that we keep having to adapt to, and it requires a lot of coping. And it not just require coping, but effective coping, healthy ways of coping with them. And we're going to talk a bit more about how can you be coping with them effectively, some of the ways that you can be dealing with life stresses later on. I'll touch towards the end of the talk. And thirdly is personal awareness. So being aware of how you feel, what are your thoughts, why are you behaving this way. It also, when in the healthy mental health, we see that we also have a strong relationship with our loved ones, family members, and friends. And in terms of productivity, we're able to concentrate better in terms of study, in terms of work. All right, so that's kind of the brief introduction to mental health. If you want to know more, you can go to our YouTube channel, right? Miri Gospel Chapel English, and you get to see the part 1 talk and know more about mental health. But today we're going to focus more on the symptoms and risks and how you can be managing that. So first off is what are some of the symptoms that we commonly see, right? So I'm going to be talking quite a lot, but also before I talk a lot more, I want to hear from you. So again, same like the first talk, we're also going to have this QR code, this menti.com word cloud. I'm going to share you this link right now. Let me just copy it to the chat box. All right, so you can click in and then you will see something like this. So in your opinion, what are some common signs? What are some of the symptoms that someone is struggling with mental health? So if you see someone with, so and so and so symptoms, probably you think that that person is struggling with mental health. So I want to find out, what do you understand in terms of identifying someone with mental health struggles? So just very quickly, there's 3 boxes. Just fill up, 1 or 2 or 3 answers in, and you can actually submit multiple times as well. And it's going to show up here on my screen on the word cloud as soon as you guys enter. I'm just going to go there. Optionally, you can go to menti.com and use the code that's shown here. So let me just show this as well. All right, I got 2 responses so far. It is feeling down, loss of appetite, restless, insomnia, isolation. Right, all really good answers. These are good signs that someone is struggling with mental health. All right, negative thinking is the big word that's coming up. Yeah, so someone who's struggling with mental health finds it hard to be optimistic and sees things in a more negative light. All right, talk less, feeling down, overreact, yeah. Rushing, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Feeling down, oversensitive. Okay. All right. We just wait a bit more and see from you guys the more answers. So far we got 5 responses coming in. Wait for a bit more. So you can either click on the link that I shared in the chat box, or you can go straight to menti.com and type the code that you can see on the screen. And reasonable. Yeah, I guess that comes from not being able to predict and understand why they're going through that. So it feels unreasonable to us. But there are reasons to it. It's just that we need to spend some time to talk to them and understand what's going on. Right. Conflicting decisions. Okay. Right. Bipolar, mood swing. Okay, so bipolar is one type of mental health disorder. That is 2 parts. We call it bi because there's 2 sides to it. It is the depressive episode that someone is at a very low mood, feeling very hopeless and having suicidal thoughts, to manic, as Pastor Paul shared just now, feeling really energetic, feeling like they can do a lot of things, having a lot of quick thoughts that's running through their minds at the same time. But those are the part of the manic episode, and all of these 2 things combined together is what we call the bipolar disorder. Okay, great. I think that is really good response from you guys. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. Right, I'm going to come back to our slides on the top. I think you guys covered really good points on what are the symptoms that we see someone is struggling with mental health. Probably we can skip a whole big chunk then. Yeah, but yeah, I think you guys have, the basis of it, and I'm really glad to see that. All right, so we're going to talk about stress a bit, because going through this COVID situation, things in life, new changes, it's a lot of stress. And guess what? Stress is a normal reaction to changes that we face. So whenever you find yourself adapting to something new that you're not familiar with, you feel stressed, that's actually a good sign, because the body is reacting to give you that what we call the fight or flight mode, so that you're alert. And what is this fight or flight? So fight is when you're trying to defend yourself. You're fighting against that threat, right? And flight is when you're running away, you choose to run away from that threat. And people respond differently to threats. And there's no right and there's no wrong, but rather what this is actually protecting us. It produces in us that hormone for us to stay alert, right? To be ready to face challenge, or to protect ourselves and run away from it, right? So when we're facing new situations, we're put naturally into this mode of being very alert, all right? And it's a natural response to feel stress when it's something that we're not familiar with, something that we keep having to adapt to because things keep changing, right? And we see that a lot in this period of time, current pandemic that's going on around us. Right. So what about stress that I need to talk about today is that there is good stress. There is bad stress. Good stress is good because it keeps us alert, helps us feel motivated and ready to avoid danger. And how does that look like to us? Would be making sure that we complete our, assignments before the deadline, making sure that we have the presentation up before the next project at work, or making sure that we prepare ourselves well before going to present something, so that we don't, so that we make sure that we do our part, and not disappoint other people, and not fail our subjects, and not, get fired from work. So those are the things that it's good to kind of protect us, making sure that we're alert, know that to take this seriously, we need to do something about it, right? So this is where we call a good stress. But what about a bad stress? Well, bad stress is when we're constantly in this situation where we're facing with new situations, new adaptation, constant change of things. That is not just for a short term, but for a long term. And it's what we call chronic stress. When you're constantly under this high stress, high alert, that fight or flight mode that I talked about. And when this becomes a long-term thing, what really happens is that it causes wear and tear to the body, not just physically, but also mentally, right? So what are some of the long-term risks of facing long-term exposure to stress, or what we call chronic stress? There are two parts to it. There is the mental health aspect and there is the physical health aspect. The mental health aspect are things that I'm going to talk about a lot more. Very commonly, things like depression and anxiety. These two are the main things that we see in therapy. Also, another thing that comes out when we go through high stress, a lot of changes, that lack of sense of control over things that's going on. It's also the eating disorder, whether it's obesity, overeating, anorexia, which is restrictive eating to the point of being underweight, right? And we see that eating disorder comes up when someone lacks control of the situation and they're trying to gain control in other parts of their life, and this is one of the way that it manifests itself into, controlling their eating or forcing themselves into one thing of their aspect of their life that can actually then fully control off when things around them feels like it's out of control. So this is something that we kind of observe as well. Physical health-wise, we're looking at heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases, high BP, stroke, all of those things, menstrual problems, sexual dysfunctions, skin and hair problems, gastrointestinal problems like gastrics, right? And all this thing, I'm not going to really touch it. You can read it on your own. But what you can see here is that chronic stress is not just going to affect you in terms of your mental health, but also your physical health. And physical health down, your mental health is also down. And this is why we see that, physical health and mental health is very closely related. It's linked together. Right. So what are the common types of mental health struggle? What are the common things that we see in a therapy? And I'm going to talk about two major things that bring people into therapy. It could be of other disorders that has been affecting them, but mainly these are the two big things that bring a person to say that I need therapy. This is where we see depression and anxiety coming up quite a lot on therapy. So I'm going to cover some of the common symptoms under depression, anxiety, and some of the other symptoms that are actually shared by two of these disorders broadly. So under depression, we see that this person is going through very low mood, right? Feeling sad and low mood all the time. And these are things that you don't see previously in this person. It's only suddenly, you realize that this person is no longer as happy as he is or she is before, just feeling very low all the time, even talking in a very low tone. So those are things that we see in a person who is struggling with depression. Second is interest withdrawal. So they probably were previously interested in, say, gardening, but after that, no longer interested in gardening at all. Maybe the plants are kind of like dying, turning yellow in the garden. And you would realize that change. People who are around them would realize that change, where they used to be interested in something and then no longer interested anymore. And there's also the appetite change, eating a lot more than usual or eating a lot less. We also see sleep changes, what I shared previously in the first in the first talk, right? Insomnia is when you find it hard to sleep, you find it hard to fall asleep, you only sleep a really minimal amount of sleep of hours per night. That's what we call insomnia. Or you're sleeping for long hours, say 9 hours, 10 hours, 11 hours. That's what we call hypersomnia, because even after they wake up, they don't feel energetic, and that is, that's the problem there. It's sleep that is not fulfilling. It's actually sleep that is, there's a lot of things going on in the mind, and the sleep itself is not kind of refreshing enough for the person, even after they have woken up from that long hours of sleep. We also see hopelessness and worthlessness. So feeling really hopeless about the future, feeling like there's no other option. This is the way I I'm stuck now, feeling stuck in the present, feeling like there's nothing else, no other options out of what they're going through. Worthlessness is feeling, they're feeling very useless, feeling like they are a burden to other people. Why are they being like this? Instead of, because they have come from normal functioning to suddenly not being able to function at all, or very minimally, and that can bring up that sense of like, oh, why am I so worthless now compared to previously? And that's what we see as well in people with depression. Also, suicidal thoughts, so constantly thinking about killing themselves as part of suicidal thoughts. And then having plans to kill themselves is also part that comes out of the suicidal thoughts that we want to be alert of. That is equally as dangerous. When we say someone has suicidal thoughts, having this thoughts of wanting to kill yourself, it may come up at some point of your life. Research found that almost 80% of the population has thought about what if they die, what if they kill themselves, what if the bus comes and kills me, I'm standing in the middle of the road. These are what we call thoughts that all of us have, but what comes to the point of depression is where they're planning really specifically how can they be killing themselves, coming up with very specific plans. And I can talk more about it later on, maybe during the Q&A if you've got more questions about the suicidal thoughts. But basically this is it, understanding that it is also thoughts and it's also the action part, the action plan part of the suicidal thoughts, right? And also we see social withdrawal. So social withdrawal is what we see as actually depression and anxiety as well, and also many other disorder where people, when they are in distress, they pull themselves out of the society, out of their friends, their friend circle, their family circle, and they isolate themselves. Like one of you have listed out in the word cloud just now, isolating themselves to their own thoughts and worry. And we see for anxiety, well, the common symptoms are having irrational worry or fear. Irrational is when they have a lot of worry that is even it is blown out of proportion. It's no longer making sense anymore. And we see that it is, perhaps talking about COVID, right? Someone can be worried about going out because what if they get in contact with someone who's positive? That's a rational worry. Now, what is irrational is when you say that I'm going to just keep myself at home, even though I'm just going to starve, I'm going to die. I don't mind because I really don't want to go out. And my really, really greatest fear is that if I do go out and if I do even see someone in the eye, I'm going to get COVID and I'm going to get positive, right? And that is kind of blown out of proportion. It stems from that worry, it stems from that very core sense of worry and fear for their safety, their health, but then it's blown out of proportion, right? I hope that kind of example gave you a bit of context of what I mean when I say irrational worry or fear. Second is the restlessness, right? Finding it hard to calm down, feeling like they're always like on edge, hard to breathe, feeling like it's something's bothering them. They can't seem to just calm down. It's like, you see a lot of that like shakiness in the body, or they're looking around, that really tense feeling. And with that, it's also the tense muscle. Oftentimes the shoulder area, I think a lot of us, when we're tense, our body just kind of like shrinks itself inside, kind of like to protect ourselves. And that's where we unconsciously tense our muscle for too long, and then it becomes really tense and painful and sore when you try to move your arms and your neck. So these are signs of anxiety. It is part of it. It doesn't mean that if you have tense muscle, it means you have anxiety, but it is part of what they experience for someone who has anxiety. Mind going blank. So probably thinking about something, and then after that, just mind going blank, and then time pass. And then you're suddenly doing something else. and feels like time's going really fast. You're not sure what you're really doing part of the time. So that's common signs of anxiety. We also see sleep disturbances, right? So this is also something that we see in depression, whether it's insomnia or hypersomnia. And for people who go through what we call panic attacks, they experience things like heart palpitation, the heart beating really, really, really fast, but they're not running. They're not on the gym, or they're not hiking, or they're not exercising or lifting anything heavy. They're just physically in a calm state, but their heart is starting to pump really quickly. This is part and parcel symptoms of panic attack, and difficulty breathing as well in the process of it, feeling like you're gonna die, feeling like you can't breathe. Common thoughts that comes out of difficulty breathing is, oh my gosh, I think I'm gonna die, I can't breathe, what's happening with me? So these are common thoughts of someone who's experiencing panic attacks, and this is also in that box of anxiety. So there's two big boxes that we see here. It's also known as mood disorder, and they are, why they call moods, because they are regarding our emotions. In terms of depression, is feeling low, anxiety is feeling that worry, that fear, right? And because they are all under the same big tree of mood disorder, they share similarities with each other. Some of the symptoms you see in depression, you see in anxiety as well. So what are those kind of similar symptoms is that drastic changes in mood and in behavior. Say they were calm and then suddenly very reactive, angry at a certain point, when at first they were actually in a calm state. So that drastic, change in their emotions, in their behavior, it's also one that we commonly see. And then it is difficulty concentrating, finding it hard to concentrate, especially in, say, work, where, a lot of concentration is needed, or say studying, finding hard to sit in an exam and answer all of the questions, finding hard to study for the exam. These are like common symptoms that we see. And then there is the sleep disturbances that I mentioned before, whether it's insomnia, very little lack of sleep, or hypersomnia, sleeping a lot but then waking up and feeling like you still don't feel energized. And the last is the loss of energy, feeling very tired, easily tired. Doing something, say maybe even waking out of bed and going to brush your teeth, is something that takes so much effort. And this is what we commonly see in patients with depression. All right, so I've talked a lot about the symptoms, the signs, and I think a lot of you also know what are some of the common symptoms, someone struggling with mental health. But what can you do? What are some of the coping ways that you can take home at the end of this talk? So first, I'm going to talk about yourself. I'm going to talk about other people around you. So first, about yourself. I'm going to go through 6 ways that you can be coping in terms of stress, mainly. Yeah. So first thing is emotional check-in. It's what we call, it is what we kind of term when someone is checking in and asking themselves how do they feel, making sure that they know what they've gone through. So this is, in simple terms, it's kind of reflecting on how the day has been. So in order to do that is first to take a pause, and that means to take some time for yourself, to make time at the end of the day, a short break. It could be just 2 minutes, it could be just 5 minutes. Have a short reflection on how your day has been, and take deep breaths, right? A lot of time you rush through things, and when we're in shock and we're in constant worry, if you're like me, it's working from home, you're kind of like staring at the laptop, you're just straining your muscles the whole day, just sitting in the same position. To allow yourself to relax, take a deep breath and relax your body. And also what we encourage is for people to journal their feelings. So writing down how your day has been, what have you done, and what makes you feel this way right now, and what's going on. So it's really just like kind of writing a story about how your day has been. And research found that if we spend 2 minutes per day just writing down how we've been, reflecting and writing it, just 2 minutes per day, we find evidently there's improvement in your health after 4 to 6 weeks. That is 1 month to about 1.5 months later. So it's pretty short, right? It's just 2 minutes per day. And it's almost like watching a short video on our phone, and then spending that time instead of watching something else on our social media or scrolling through our phone or watching movies, that we're spending that 2 minutes of our day just focusing on how we've been, reflecting on how the day has been. And in reflecting on how we've been, we actually increase our endurance to go through what we're struggling with. And because we know what is causing us to feel a certain way, we kind of know where the problem is coming from, and thus it also improves problem solving. So yes, that's the first one, emotional check-in. And then the second one is setting a routine for yourself. So a lot of people struggles with making a good routine, and I'm going to share with you why that is. It's because oftentimes when we are told to set a routine, we put like, 12 to 1, do this, 1 to 2, do that, 2 to 3, do this, 3 to 4, do that. It's all do. And at the end, right, when you're looking at the list, it just feels so tiring that you don't feel motivated to do it at all, because it's just doing and doing. Just looking at it feels exhausting, not to say do it, right? So setting a good routine is where you slot in breaks. You prioritize your work, things that you need to do, and that is where having a to-do list is helpful. And scheduling breaks, say just 5 minutes of, whether it's stretching, looking out the window, scrolling through your phone, listening to music, small things like that, and yet it just refreshes the mind a bit, and your body just feels very comfortable. And if your brain feels comfortable in what you're doing, chances are you're able to follow with your routine a lot better, a lot longer, more sustaining in the future. So that's where the reward yourself comes in. Make sure that you put in breaks. And why is this important? It's because in this world where everything is constantly changing, things are going up and down. COVID cases in Miri, it's going high up and then going down a bit, high up, going down a bit. All of this is going to make us really stressful, because these are things that's out of our control, and it makes us feel really anxious. We cannot control things that's going around us. So setting a routine kind of just make sure for yourself, knowing that no matter what is going on around you, there is something that is constant, that is just fixing that schedule, making time, knowing that at this time, be doing this, at the other time, you've been doing that, or taking a break, right? And that increases that predictability in your life, so it just reduces that stress as well. And the third one is improving your lifestyle. So based on the WHO, they've shown that we all averagely need 7 to 9 hours of sleep per day. And it's always good to have a fixed sleep-wake cycle. So fixing the constant time of what time you go to bed and what time you wake up in your bed, and making sure that you eat healthily, eating more nuts, eating more greens, eating more proteins, and eat in moderation as well. And why is it important to maintain this lifestyle is that research has found that when someone has a healthy lifestyle, very importantly, even like things like sleep, they're able to think more positive. They're able to maintain a more optimistic view of things. I think one of you mentioned during the word bubble just now is someone who is struggling with mental health, has negative thoughts, right? Negative thinking. Yeah. And it is true that when someone has, what we see, sleep disturbance that we see just now, commonly in depression and anxiety, sleep is that sleep-wake cycle is kind of affected, and that's where that negative thinking comes from. So what you can do is actually making sure that you sleep at a fixed time every day, waking up at a fixed time every day. That small change is going to improve your just your thought patterns, the way that you think more optimistic as well. The fourth one is meaningful activities. So this is like picking a hobby, things that you enjoy, you like doing. It could be taking online courses, learning how to, say, play the piano, or learning online courses on how to make certain crafts or taking pictures. There's a lot of things that we can explore online, and most of it is not really that expensive. So yeah, making time for yourself and think creatively. If you can bring someone to do it together with you, it would be even better, because that brings us to the next point of connecting to other people while doing activity. And why is it important? It's because when we enjoy what we're doing, it gives us a clearer sense of our purpose, and also allow us to grow as we understand what are our own interests. And so we go to the next on connecting with other people. So I know that right now, all of us may find it a lot more comfortable to be at home, and we're struggling to go out, especially with the increased rise in the cases lately. Perhaps feel more comfortable to be at home, but that should not stop us from connecting with other people. We can be creative, maybe you're calling other people, joining movie streams online, and calling up friends and family members. Right, and this is also where fellowship comes in, where we have fellowship with other brothers and sisters in Christ via Zoom or via Google Meet. So these are like small ways, and it could be just that 2 hours of getting to hear from each other, read the Bible together, and get encouraged, and that gives us a sense of belongingness, feeling that we're cared for and we're loved by each other. It thus encourages to be persevering throughout things that's going on around us. Lastly, related to the first part of our talk, is break the stigma. And how can you be breaking mental health stigma? First is to read more about mental health. And I'm going to give you 2 resources later on after this on that you can subscribe, and you can read articles relating to mental health. And another part of breaking the stigma is also monitoring yourself, monitoring other people, and see that if you are in distress, right, allow yourself to go get the necessary help that you may be wondering what is therapy and how it looks like. Therapy looks like seeking clarity on what is going on with you, and then understanding what's going on with you, and then learning ways to cope with the struggles that you're having in areas of your life. And you have someone who is monitoring your improvement, highlighting your strengths, and seeing other ways, points of improvements that you can work on in therapy. So, if you look at it that way, actually everyone can benefit from therapy, but mainly even more so for those who are struggling with mental health. So, yeah. To the next one is, I know that last week Pastor Paul asked me for reading resources, and I didn't hear his question, and I totally ignored him. But I'm going to make it up to him today. I'm going to show you guys these 2 articles, blogs that you can follow. The first one is Good Therapy. So it's a free mental health blog that you can follow. Just subscribe to it. They have quite a lot of good articles written by people in the mental health field, and get to read updated research or findings about mental health as well. On Facebook, you can follow American Psychological Association. They have also a lot of good articles that is easy to read for anyone who's interested to know more about mental health and keeping yourself up to date on what's going on and understanding perhaps what you're going through and what your loved ones are going through. Okay, so wait a bit more. So if you want to screen capture, this is your time. So it's first is Good Therapy, and then the second one is American Psychological Association. Right. So now talk about others. Say if you got friends or family members who are actually struggling with mental health, and you kind of know the symptoms to it. You kind of know what are some of the key things that you've been observing perhaps concerned about how they're doing, there are ways that you can be talking to them. But perhaps you are worried that you might say something offensive, and then they not talk to you anymore, or maybe they get angry. So I'm going to share with you 8 tips on how you can be starting a conversation with friends or family going through mental health struggles and you want to care for them. How can you be doing it? Right. So the first one is making time. Right. Making time for this person that you want to care for and you want to understand. Make time and make sure that when you're talking about mental health, you respect their privacy. Meaning, don't ask about mental health in a public space unless they're comfortable with it. We highly encourage you not to do it in front of a big public. Say if you're going out with a group of friends and you want to talk about this, we encourage you to bring this person aside and talk to them about it first. Only if they're comfortable talking about it in front of other people can you only do that. But because you don't know that yet, it's always good to first go with privacy, making sure that it's just between the two of you when you're talking about mental health. Second is share the space. The share space. So the space for them to share what they're going through with you. And that space is basically that time and that effort that you just be there, letting them know that you're there for them, letting them know that you're here, you care for them. And if they have anything, they can always talk to you about what they're going through. So they can share as many as they want to you, or they can share as little as they want to you. I had a client who is really worried about her sister who was, after some high school stresses, stopped joining the family for dinner, spending a lot more time in her room. And my client was really worried on how to start that conversation with her because it feels like she's drawing herself away from the family. And what we did was for my client to really just tell the sister that, hey, I'm here for you. I'm worried. You look like you're going through a tough time. I know you don't want to talk to me right now, but I'm here for you. And if you got anything, you can come and talk to me. All right. And just letting them know that, hey, I'm here for you. Even though you may not feel like you're helping a lot at that time, but actually for them, you are helping a lot because they know that they're not alone. And that is a big part of big comfort to them. Long story short, I didn't really hear back from the client anymore. The client stopped coming, but I saw them again in another event, and I saw that this client and her sister, their relationship strengthened. They were laughing together, so I can see that their relationship has strengthened, and I believe perhaps in the process of it, the sister has come up and opened up about what she is going through. So yes, that share space available for that person that you're worried about. Okay. Third one is don't diagnose or second guess their feelings. Diagnosing is for psychiatrists only, for psychologists only. It's not our job to simply just diagnose people. Rather, it is good for us to focus on their immediate needs. So asking things like, how can I be helping? What do you think are ways I can be helping you with? Right? Asking those questions would be a lot more helpful rather than second guessing them and saying, are you sure? Oftentimes there are things that someone's going through, perhaps maybe like 5 years ago, maybe they lost someone, and then only after 5 years they're starting to feel that pain and they're grieving over it. And perhaps when they're telling you, you might feel very weird, like, are you sure? That happened like 5 years ago. Why are you only feeling this way right now? And it's a natural response. We call it a delayed response to grief, right? And it is possible to that for us to experience something that happened maybe a long time ago, and then to only experience and feel how someone should be feeling when they're going through grief after many, many years, when they're ready, when their body is ready for them to go through it. So not to second guess, not to be judgmental, but really to be there and asking them, how can you be helping? The fourth one is open-ended question. So instead of saying you seem a little down lately, you want to be asking open-ended question, meaning you're not just putting out a statement, rather you're opening it up for a space for them to talk about it. So saying things like, can you tell me how you feel? Or saying things like, if you're seeing a bit down lately, I wonder, how have you been? Perhaps you can tell me about it. So just turning that statement into an open-ended question, you allow them to share with you. And again, going back to the second point, if they don't feel like sharing a lot with you, or they say, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. And perhaps that means they're not ready to share yet, and it's okay. Just letting them know that, hey, I'm here if you really want to talk, can be a really big help for them. 5 is talk about coping. So a lot of times we find it helpful that when we're stressed, we want to just vent out our frustration, our worry to that person, telling the person what we're struggling with. But what would be more helpful is actually for us to talk about how we are coping, how they are coping. Okay, so asking them, so I wonder, what have you been doing to help yourself after going through so much things? What have you been doing to make sure that you're safe or you're okay? So talking about those things also make that person think about ways that can be handling their issues in a more healthier way. And for you to be there, their support is very encouraging for them. Number 6 is listen carefully. This is without question, right? Just being there, listen without judgment, without prejudgment, even after perhaps you've heard something else, different story from another person. And perhaps at the back of your mind, you're thinking this person is maybe not saying the truth, right? But it is part of their story. You respect that it is their part of the story. But it's for us to listen to them carefully and not judging. All right, the 7 is knowing your limits. So if this person tells you that they have enough, going to kill themselves, tomorrow at this time I'm going to do this to myself, know that you have reached your limit, and not to put this pressure on yourself. If you have a friend who is not safe, or this family member who you feel, who you're worried about, they're going to hurt themselves. What can you be doing is the 8. Offer them help in seeking professional support. And I'm going to talk more about it later on some of the helpful resources that you can be reaching out in Miri specifically. Okay. All right, so I've talked a lot about coping. I thought it would be great for all of us to just do a activity together. So if you're comfortable, you can turn on your camera, and for all of us to just do this group activity together. It's what we call mindful breathing, basically just to focus on our breathing. We're a lot very easily distracted by things around us, very easily getting carried away by worries, concerns, by things that are unpredictable, out of our control, but and it can affect our focus. So what can you be doing to bring your focus back to what is going on is simply focusing on your breathing. So short exercise, if you're all ready, you can choose to close your eyes if you want to, but if closing your eyes makes you feel like you're going to start thinking about other things, you're going to get distracted and you find it easier to focus with your eyes open, and you can actually keep your eyes open, so it's optional. All right, so with eyes closed or eyes open, I want you to sit straight, straighten your back, sit comfortably, preferably with your leg on the floor, hands on your thigh, right? Back straight. I want you to start to focus on your breathing. Take a deep breath. And out. Okay. Notice your breathing. Again, in and out. Right as you're breathing, there may be thoughts coming in, and it's okay. Allow them to drift away. Bring your focus back to your breathing. You can put your hand on your stomach. You feel yourself breathing. right? Taking one last breath in and out. Okay. So if you're comfortable, you may open your eyes. All right, so this is the short activity for mindful breathing. I hope you found it relaxing. It's really just like a 1 minute or 2 minutes. You can do it a lot longer if you want to, if you find it helpful and you want to continuously do this breathing for like say 3 minutes. Allow yourself to do that because this may be just a short activity, but it can bring your focus back again. It can help you focus on, especially when you find it hard to calm down, or you find it hard to fall asleep after waking up, and you want to just really calm yourself down. This is a short activity that you can try, and usually would help you to just focus on the breathing, calm yourself, calm your thoughts, and then hopefully bring you back to the state of wanting to fall asleep again. All right, so this is the group activity. You can screenshot if you want to, so you can keep a copy for yourself. All right, so we're going to go to the next part, the last part of our talk today. Okay, right, so we're going to talk about referral resources, knowing where's our limit. When do we say that, yeah, I need professional help? I need to see a doctor or a psychologist or a counselor. When is it right to say those things? And then what are some of the common resources that you can reach out to in terms of hotline? And also what are the places that you can go to for psychological help, psychiatric help in Miri? Okay, self-help. Say if you've tried things that I talked about earlier on about how you can be helping yourself in terms of reflecting on how the day has been, spending time with other people, connecting with others, and reading about mental health, and adjusting your sleep routine, but just doesn't seem to be helping you. You feel like you've tried all you can, but it's not working for you. Know then that there is like a red alarm to yourself, right? I have tried all that I can. I have reached my limit. So it's time to reach out to professional help. Okay. And then the second one is if you're in the persistent emotional distress for over 2 weeks. So remember what I shared just now about the mental health struggles, right? Things like low mood, having suicidal thoughts, in terms of the anxiety would be feeling restless or having a lot of irrational fears and worries. And if this constantly happens to you for a period of 2 weeks, that is long enough for you to say that, you see whether it's a psychologist or psychiatrist or counselor, right? So that 2 weeks period. So if it's why do we say 2 weeks, right? It's because a lot of us go through that stresses in work. A lot of us go through that changes in our life, even in this time of pandemic, right? Where things are so unpredictable, it can be scary. So to have those experiences I talked about, feeling that worry and sad, is part of the human response. But when it continuously is affecting you for 2 weeks, you're now finding it hard in terms of your daily functioning, in terms of your personal hygiene. You find it hard to even wake up, finding it hard to even go to the washroom, finding it hard to even brush your teeth or to shower. Or in terms of work, you're finding it hard to focus, you're finding it hard to finish the deadlines that are given to you, or studies, the assignments, the exams. Or socially, you're finding it hard to talk to other people, and you're finding it easier to isolate yourself. All of these three major things means that you really need to start seeking for help before it gets worse. Yeah. right? Some of the things that we also see is the loss of interest, like I said earlier on, that change of being interested in that thing and then suddenly losing that interest, and then not just that, but also having that, that sense of hopelessness, worthlessness, having that appetite change, that sleep disturbance, all of that together is saying something about your mental health. Your body is trying to tell you that, hey, you're not well. You need to seek help. So take those signs seriously. And then the fourth one is the suicide ideation. I've spoken about this earlier on. Ideation is basically, in other words, thoughts. So having suicidal thoughts, and ideas about wanting to kill himself, herself, or even harm other person, harm other people. All of those things all together, we sum it up to suicide ideation. That person has kind of lost that hope in life and really just see suicide as the only option in life. That's where you want to keep yourself safe, or if you know that person is going through that, you want to keep that person safe, you want to refer that person out to professional help. So this is the same page that I shared with you guys in the first talk. It is actually hotlines, 24 hours hotlines and mental health services that are available to anyone who's within Malaysia. So the 24 hours hotlines, going to go through it again for the benefit of those who this may be the first time you're seeing this. So the first one is Befrienders. They are mainly a suicide helpline. They help answer calls from people who are perhaps thinking really strongly about killing themselves, having plans, or just really wanting someone to talk to at that moment in time. They're worried that they might harm themselves, but say all of their friends are sleeping, right? So this is the 24 hours hotline. You can call at any time. There will be people who are trained to answer this call, be there to spend time with you and just talk through and to calm you down. Talian Casa is set up by our government. It's 15999. Because it's by the government, they also have people who answer the call from different languages. They have PM, English, Chinese, Tamil, all of the key languages in Malaysia. They have people who are on the phone, on the line 24 hours to answer calls that are of emotional distress. Okay, and then we have Women's Aid Organization. This is mainly for women who've gone through different types of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and they need help to get out of that situation. They want someone to advise them what can they do about it. This is the hotline that they can call. It's a 24 hours hotline, or they can also WhatsApp. They call this line Tina. So they can also WhatsApp Tina on this number that you can see on the screen. And then there's also Soul's Health. This is where I'm working at. Like Pastor Paul said earlier on, it is an NGO, but we will be going into a private center. So meaning we will be transitioning no longer an NGO, but into a private center by end of June. And we will be called Thrive Well by then. So we're going through a lot of transition at our workplace right now, but yeah, basically it is Souls Health coming to Thrive Well, and the good news is that they have recently decided to expand their service to Miri. So starting 1st June onwards, there will be an office that I will be seeing face-to-face clients in Miri, either under the Souls Health or Thrive Well, depending on how we're transitioning by then. So yeah, just letting you know that previously I talked about more of the online option, but right now letting you know that by the 1st of June, it would be open up to face-to-face. It would be me at the office. And yeah, we rented like a small space to see clients. Yeah, you can ask me more about it if you want to know. If you're interested, you can ask me during the Q&A later on. All right, so going to talk about MMHA. The Mind, Relate Malaysia, they all provide mental health services, not hotlines. And because they're all located in KL, if you want to reach out to them, it would be better to go for the online options. So all of them provide online therapy as well during this time of pandemic. I think one thing that's good that came out of this pandemic is that we've all kind of moved our therapy online, because we understand that for some people, they prefer to stay home for their own safety, and we respect that. Right. And Lifeline Association, they are actually somewhat of a hotline, but they're not 24 hours. They have people who speak Mandarin, mainly Mandarin speaking, at Lifeline, answering hotline calls and providing minimal therapy, but more on hotline. So if you've got friends who are more comfortable speaking in Mandarin, this is a number that you can give them to contact. All right. Of course, be mindful of their working hours, because it's not 24-hour hotline for this. Okay, so what about in Miri itself? Say if you want to see a psychiatrist or psychologist, where can you kind of going for the services in Miri? So I've gotten this information from the head of psychiatry at GH, and this is what was shared with me. So you can first, there are a few options. So the first is walk into Clinic Kesehatan. So Clinic Kesehatan, we got two in Miri. One is Clinic Kesehatan Sudan, and then one is Clinic Kesehatan Miri. In this clinic in itself, we have family medicine specialists, medical doctors, medical officers, and then counselor, something that is newly just placed in clinics Kesehatan around across Malaysia. They've decided to put in counselor to be there so that they can actually also do that. There's a doctor to do that screening assessment, and then there's that counselor to provide you that minimal therapy. And only if you require, they can refer you to GH for the psychiatric clinic. All right. And then the second option is private GP or panel clinics. So you can still go to these private centers, and if need be, you can request for a referral letter to see a psychiatrist at GH. Okay, third one is private mental health practitioners. So if you prefer private practice, you can go to, for psychiatrists, there's a psychiatrist in Colombia, Asia, and then also at BMC, Borneo Medical Center, they have their own psychiatrist. For clinical psychologists, they have one at Colombia Asia Hospital for private practice. So there also is one clinical psychologist with the psychiatric clinic at GH. So there's one there at GH and one at Colombia Asia. And then for me, it would be by June to have a small center to start seeing clients either under Souls Health or TribeWell. So there's three of us clinical psychologists providing therapy services in Miri. Okay, and this is the number for for GH Psychiatric Clinic. So you can copy it down. You can screenshot this, the number that you can call to make a referral appointment. And then in terms of psychiatric emergency, so what if it is emergency? Really at that time, you need to bring this person to see a psychiatrist, right? You can't wait for a referral anymore, because at that point in time, that person's life is in danger. So what are some examples of psychiatric emergency? First thing is psychotic experience. Say if this psychotic experience is two things: delusion, which I talked about in the last talk. Delusions are beliefs that are irrational. Say, believe that someone's following them, believe that someone is controlling their mind, or someone has put in a special chip into their brain and track whatever they're thinking, whatever they're doing. These are irrational thoughts that they're experiencing. It's all under what we call delusions, right? And then under psychotic experiences, there's also hallucination, where people may be hearing things that other people are not hearing, seeing things, objects that other people are not seeing, smelling things that other people are not smelling. So these are signs of psychotic experiences that require psychiatric emergency intervention. Also, we have suicidal behavior. So if the person has specific plans, right? I said earlier on, if the person already tell you that they have plans on taking their own life, and specific ways of how to do it, very specific how to do it. They can tell you that they're gonna, either hang themselves or overdose on medication. These are the plans that they have, by what time, when they're alone, yada yada, all of these things. It is a big sign of a psychiatric emergency, to bring this person to safety. As a friend, as a family member, that is really the right thing, the best thing that you can do for this person at that point in time. Also is aggression. So I think this also relates to the story that Pastor Paul shared earlier on in the beginning of this talk, right? This certain person started throwing things, started shouting, looking really aggressive, and really angry. These are signs of aggression. They are at that point can be causing a lot of harm to people around them. You want to protect themselves as well as other people around them. At that time is what we call a psychiatric emergency, which means that you need to bring this person to psychiatric intervention at the moment in time. So where can you be going? Is the emergency department of GH or the nearest medical center, be it private or government. Right, I hope this is clear. So you could take a picture of it. Feel free to screenshot and keep a copy of this for yourself for future reference. At least it's something that you can refer to. All right. So that's that for today's talk. What time is it? It is 3:11. It's a bit shorter than last week. It's a bit longer actually. Yeah, I think I'm eating out into the Q&A time. But yeah, thank you all for your patience, and I hope that you guys took a bit and understand a bit more about how you can be coping and what can you be doing with someone who's struggling with mental health. Again, I'm going to close with the same quote that I ended previously by C.S. Lewis, that when pain is to be borne, a little courage helps more than much knowledge, and a little human sympathy from us. From every one of us here is much more than courage, and the least tincture, just a drip of the love of God, is more than all. Right? So hopefully this serves as an encouragement to you if you're going through a lot. You really need courage, you need human sympathy, but most of all, the love of God. And I hope that you are reaching out to people that you know in church that could lead you and bring you and guide you during this difficult time of your life. Okay, so we can go into Q&A. I'll pass the time back to Pastor Paul.
Wow, thank you, Sister Vera, for this wonderful sharing and a lot of information. It's very helpful. One thing is a good reminder for me is there's a good stress, and stress is a normal reaction to a new situation. That is helpful. A good reminder for me, and also that is a bad stress and how to differentiate that. And I like there's a time frame. Let's talk about there's 2 weeks, the persistent emotional distress over 2 weeks, and that's the guideline for us. So I hope this information help us to determine when we should take action to ourselves or to help others. And those coping methods are also helpful. Remind us to rest in God, and to have fun and to enjoy and reward ourselves. Those reminders is truly needed this time. And one thing to add on, I think for myself, in the past experience to help my friends in the psychiatric emergency, I asked the GH department, the psychiatric department, what can I do if that person don't want to cooperate to go to the hospital? What can I do? Or go to the clinic? The personnel told me you either call the police or drag the person here. So so if that person causes trouble, then we can call the police, and the police can come and help. So maybe we can tell the police that person to have that maniac issue or some psychiatric background. So maybe that can help the police also to deal with the case and help the person. So now it's a Q&A question. So welcome to ask Vera in the chat box, or just open your mic, unmute yourself, and to ask Vera. Any or a compliment or to Sister Vera?
I do have a question.
For yourself?
Yes.
Okay,
For
go
the
ahead.
floor. Okay, some people cope with their mental health struggles by resorting to drinking, drugs, and etc., often to forget things. What would be your advice to those in this situation, and what would be better, healthier alternatives to this in terms of physical consumption? Okay, yeah, thanks for that question. So it talks about when someone tries to cope. We talked about that earlier on, right? That all of us go through life stresses, and we all try to cope with it. We're all naturally wanting to deal with that, and we all deal with it differently. And there are ways that are helpful, ways that are not helpful, and what are unhelpful ways are, drinking, right? Getting yourself drunk so that you stop thinking about it and you numb your feelings, right? But it's temporary because after that you're going to be sober again, and those issues that was there is still there. That bottle did not solve anything. It did not bring anything away. Similar to drugs, right? You take that to make yourself feel high and happy for that moment in time, and as you get sober, you realize that all of that painful things that you're going through is still there. So what can you be doing? All right. So if you're already resorting to drinking and drugs, first thing is definitely bring yourself to see a psychiatrist, because they are mental implications when you take drugs, when you drink alcohol for too long, many years, would bring side effects to your mental health. So getting yourself checked, and then going into therapy, work on what are those things that are affecting you. Because they are reasons to why you're feeling all of this pain. We call it psychological pain. It feels so strong. It feels like your heart is aching, but really there's nothing wrong with your heart. There's actually things that's happening to you that is painful. And these are things that you can talk about, and we'll see how we can be helping you in the therapy room itself. Right. So if you have already resorted to drinking and drugs, that's really the best alternative way to handling it. But if you have not drunk to your death, right, or drunk until you faint on the floor, or taking drugs, you're just thinking about how can I be handling things in healthier ways. Those things that I mentioned about just now, taking that break, reflecting on how your day has been, talking to people, reaching out and connecting with others, telling them what you've been going through. Someone that you can trust, definitely, it's going to be helpful in this situation, someone that can hear you out. And of course, we're going to talk about your daily routine as well, how you sleep, how you eat, making sure that you keep track of how you're doing those things, so that if you tried all of those things and it's still not working for you, then go for professional help. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Any more questions? I think this is a good topic about addiction, right? Alcohol addiction and drug addiction. So maybe the next section can share about this, Vera. If you prepare for this, like addiction, what is addictions, then what can we do? Because there's a lot, like others is like game, self-abuse, pornography, and those things is dragging us. It's a serious issue. Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can explore this in the future.
Sure.
Any other you want to ask?
Okay, now the question, generally stressed people tend to eat more, depressed people tend to eat less. Is this always the case, and can the opposite happen? Does appetite vary based on individuals? Okay, so it's talking about how the person's eating. You're talking about appetite, and you're talking about whether person who is depressed only eat less, or they can also eat more. Well, this is based on our research and how we have found people to cope with different ways, and mainly two of the things that we observe someone who's depressed is they can either eat a lot more than usual, or they can eat less. So it's not necessary that, oh, you have depression, so you must be eating less. Not really the case. And we have this in our diagnostic book as well, to tell us that if you are diagnosing someone and you're eating a lot more, plus of course with other symptoms that we talked about, there's under the depression symptoms, right? They can also be given that diagnosis of depression. So everyone deal with it differently, and it does not mean that, perhaps commonly we see it more that people who are depressed does eat less. I can understand where you're coming from. But that's not the only thing. I think with a lot more research, there's also evidence that it's not just eating less, it's also eating a lot more. So that could also happen.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, some might not show the depressed side in the public. They will depressed while they're alone, but yeah, they will still in the depressions also. So they might eat more because of that depression. Any other questions?
Yeah. Okay, I have another question. Do you think the abolishment of public exam give less stress to students? I think with the public exam, it definitely just push not just stress to the student, but also to the parents, the teachers, and wanting to make sure that they reach their achievement. In the Asian country, right? Like in the Asian part of the world, like achievement is such a big thing, in our families. So I think definitely that's going to reduce a lot of stress, and that just shows that instead of life as a student, it's not just about exams. It's also about how you make friends, how you make decisions in terms of time management. I think there's a lot more to learn instead of just taking the exam and scoring straight A's for those things, right? So yeah, that answered your question. I think while I'm preparing for today's talk and looking at the coping, I'm also seeing some things that we Christians do as we practice and reflecting on how our day have been, journaling down our walk in God with God, taking that time to connect with other people through fellowships, through Bible studies. Those are actually you kind of see it, right, in the coping methods that I talked about. But of course, they don't put that there. But yeah, I mean, pro tip: being a Christian and living a Christian life is healthy for your mental health.
God, thank God for that. Fellowship. Yeah. That's why God asked us to gather to fellowship.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The communion. Yeah. Any questions coming? Anyone? If not, I think this is also important for us, how to ask questions and how to care about another person. Because we, as a Christian, we will know how we need to care and how to connect with people. So I think this also helped me when I learned about this open-ended question. So we need to ask open-ended questions. But this is very technical terms. So what it's good. It's good. We know this as a knowledge. But I think maybe I just add on this. So we don't ask the question with the answer will be yes or no. Such as, do you feel good? So the answer will be yes or no. So we don't ask, do you feel good or do you feel bad? So the person will answer yes or no. So this is a close-ended question. So the open-ended question will generate the space for them to think, to respond. So I wrote some down. So maybe this will help us to practice. First, Vera also shared already. You seem a little down lately. So the person cannot answer, oh yes. I can answer yes, but there's more space. Yes, but because of what maybe it's you look tired lately. It's the situation of someone, the condition of someone. You can point it out and then start the conversation. It's not or one direction. Or I think it's focused on their needs, their feelings, how they're coping, their recent family situations, and so on. So hope this help us to how to have this skills set to care for people. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Pastor Paul.
Just
All right, I have another question on what are your thoughts on pet therapy. Okay, I'm honest with you, I've not really read out on pet therapy itself. So my understanding is that with pet therapy, it's like you go into your room, there are like cute animals like around there for you to like cuddle with, and that release that stress. Of course, that with that we call that the emotional the lack of emotional connection, right? We call that psychological stroke. That's right. When we're going through a lot of worries and stress, as a kid, when we're in distress, say we fall down, we cry, we have an adult come over to like pet us and kind of give us that hug. That's what we call stroke, right? They kind of like stroke our head, right? Those are the things that even as we grow up, we kind of crave for those things, but we look for it in different ways, and think it can come in forms of words as well, how people can be saying things to encourage us, and for us we call it the psychological stroke because it makes us actually feel better, right? So with that pet therapy, it's also that physical stroke that we're having from pets that are giving us that attention, being just there to have fun and to cuddle with us. So I think definitely in that line of thought, pet therapy can work, but in terms of understanding how you can be coping with your issues, understanding what is going on with you, I don't think pets can tell you that. They can make you feel happy for temporarily after a while, but those things are definitely still going to be there. Yeah. Okay, another question. If I think my friend is overthinking about many little things and it has been going on for months, what should I do? Okay, so this is coming to observe that your friend has been telling you things that are kind of blown out of proportion, things that feel quite irrational. That, for you, it sounds like it's not a big issue, but for them, it has been troubling them a lot. And it's been going on for months. So that is a high indication that perhaps it's time to refer this friend out for professional help, right? Because if it's been going on for months, I believe you've been trying to talk to this person, trying to understand where he or she is coming from, and it seems like it's still not working. Or perhaps he finds your company helpful because you are actually there listening, but perhaps for you it's that sense of helplessness, right? Not really knowing what you can do when it feels like it's small things that this person is worried about. So it's good to refer your friend to see a therapist and be there to support as they go for that therapy, letting them know that I am here to support you throughout your therapy process.
Just want to know if the person willing to share what is the small things that she or he refer to. Maybe I'm not sure, is that the small thing is big things or big matter for someone. Those, I think it's time to talk about it. If she wants to talk or he wants to share. Any more? I think last question, if you have.
Okay, how do we support our friend who is going through therapy? Yeah, that's a good question. I think with therapy, right, for a lot of people, especially such say in our Asian culture, is something that can be, what we talked about in the last talk, right? It can be something that is, say, shameful or is not really talked about. Maybe there are quite a big handful of my clients who are going for therapy with me, but they are hiding in their room. And if someone knocks on the door, we have to mute the online session temporarily, right? Because they don't want to let their family know that they're seeing a therapist. So for you as their friend to be there, for this person who's going to therapy is going to be a big help. How can you support though? Really, maybe perhaps just hearing how they've been, how the therapy has been for them. Do they find it helpful? What did they learn? Or just even saying like, hey, you know what, you've been going for therapy for like 3 sessions now, 4 sessions now, and I realized that you have become better in terms of you've been able to sleep longer now, right? So just noticing those small things that maybe they didn't even really realize, right? Highlighting those things for them that, hey, actually, I think it's working for you, it's helping you, right? Or even going to, if therapy is not working, right? It seems like you've been going for like three or 4 sessions now. It seems like there's not much changes. So this is also something that you want to talk to your friend about, right? If you genuinely care about this friend, this is how you can be giving that support. Oh, okay. So this person is answering a question, Pastor Paul, on the little things. So little things as in maybe her friend forgot to say goodbye to her when their gang departed from the hangout. She will feel like that friend dislike her and start to overthink if she is really that bad. Yeah. So it does seem to me like, she is really sensitive to how people would treat her in terms of, say, in the big group, and even like friends, people who means a lot to this friend, to this girl. So with that, also that sensitivity on how they treat her, right? Of course, with this, things like not saying goodbye, it could be just something that they really forgot to, and not just intentionally not to say goodbye. So I can understand where you're coming from to say that this friend is perhaps overthinking what's going on and would benefit from therapy.
I think good job that she or he recognized this is that friends need help after listening to this. Or it's good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think we should conclude this talk, and then we'll soon. If you have more questions, I think if you want, you can reach out to Vera. To ask if you really need the help. Okay. So we learned a lot from these 2 talks, and welcome to listen to the first talk again. I think that's also helpful for us to do the revision, such as what is the mental health. As Vera mentioned, this mental health, as same as we have the physical health. So it is normal that for people or ourselves to have this mental health issue. So we need help in this area. So again, a reminder, there's a guideline for us. So we're not overstressed that, if we are in anxiety or depression, but there's a guideline. It's over 2 weeks. If this is consistent over 2 weeks, hard to cope with daily tasks, then we need help, or our friends need help. So I think it's just my conclusion for this. Easy for remember. What can you do to help others? First is listening. It's not teaching. So listening and also accompany. And then last, if you cannot do more, then refer. Listening, accompany, then refer. And then what can you do to help yourself? So I think it's good. Rest. We need rest. And breathe. That's all we learn. Breathe, rest. And then also pray. Pray to God. Submit your burden to God. And also connect with people. So that is a commandment. Love God, love people. Thank God for that. So Vera, you want to add more in this conclusion?
No, I think you sum it up really, really well. I think it's like a bite-sized, easy to remember things. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Then we invite Vera to pray for us and end the talk.
All right, let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for all of us here. We're interested to know more about mental health. We know that recently with the COVID cases, they're on the rise in Miri and Sarawak. We see even more now that at this time, how little control we have over things that are happening around us. And yet, Lord, we thank you that through your Son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross for every one of us here, that whoever believes in you as Lord and Savior would find peace and comfort and great hope in you. And you are our constant. There's all of this uncertainties, things that are changing around us. Lord, help us to submit our concerns, our own worries to your hands, to you who love us greatly. We also pray for those of us here who are who have family members and friends who are struggling with mental health. Lord, may you use them mightily to live out your love and care for these people around them. We also pray for those of us who are struggling with mental health personally. Pray that you give us courage and faith to bring our pain before you. Pray that you provide us people in our life that we can confide with, that we can share our burden, not to take our pain by our own stake. We pray for our church, the leaders and the elders, as they deal with people, members of the church who are going through struggles, mental health struggles. May you strengthen them. May they find peace in you. May they find comfort and wisdom in knowing what is right to do and how to best help this brother or this sister in Christ. We submit all of this into your most precious hand. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Vera, and thank you everyone.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
We will post this in YouTube, and you can share with a friend and look at it again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.